Mike, how are we doing today?
Oh, Frank, I could not be better. It is 2025.
That it is, baby.
Here we are, first episode of the year, jumping right back in it.
Yeah, we're a quarter century into this 2000s, right?
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Yep, 2025.
I moved out to Arizona in at the end of 99.
Oh, shit.
So I remember, breaking in 2020 here in Arizona.
The millennium.
Funny. Remember the whole thing about the
Y2K?
Y2K. I think that was funny.
We were talking about that too the other day.
Yeah. And I was at a party, and here in Arizona, pretty much on the last stent of the time zone, right? Because we're all the way west here.
Yep.
And we're sitting there at a party, and someone was like 10 minutes before, like, you think something's going to happen? I'm like, if it did, it would happen to Australia by now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, everyone's fine. We're good.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's funny.
And the guy who owned the house, it was pretty cool. He right at midnight, he turned his circuit breaker off.
Did he?
Yeah. He did.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it was funny.
Oh, that's good. I love that you started this episode with that story because today we're going to talk about cycles. We're going to talk about things coming up, and it's funny. I'm at a stage in my life where I've watched myself witness these end of time moments, or the world's coming to an end, or this is now broken open. There's just been so many fear moments that have been throughout my life.
Even looking like, okay, this year is going to be better than last year. It's like okay, these are just things we say. We don't really, when we think about them, like, how would any year going to be better than the last year? It'd be different. Mm-hmm. We know that. Maybe it could be at a higher level where you can identify it as better, and that's good. You know. Or because knowing that you're growing in and of itself is greater or better, if you want to use the word better. So then you needed the previous year. So you don't need the previous year to be worse in order to feel for this to be better. It's just a continuous growing. So, and that's still within the field of cycles, or I should say, patterns, right? Yep. And that's really what it is. And here at the beginning of the year, a lot of people set resolutions. It seems like less people do it, but I think psychologically, they might not talk about it. They do it because if you talk about it, then you have to do it. Right? That's the problem. Honey, this year I'm gonna lose 15 pounds. It's like, and then your wife's like, what happened?
Where did this resolution go?
It went all to my muscle, honey. Gain muscle fit. But anyway, we're here to talk about patterns today, and how to look at them and step back from them. And just when you witness the pattern, then you could allow it to go on by, but still play within the field of patterns, because the physical world is a pattern recognition world. It's a simulation, if you will. I don't want to reduce it to just a video game, because it's greater than that.
Absolutely.
But our consciousness of it is the greater thing than the simulation. So, you and I were talking about this, but like every time the holidays come along, everyone gets excited to a degree. Mm-hmm. And then, kind of as they're wrapping up, I always talk to them like, how were your holidays? I'm like, they were great, but I'm just glad they're gone.
Glad it's over.
And then they start going into the story, how they ate too much, they drank too much, their kids were bothering them, or whatever story.
How overwhelmed they were with gift buying and having to go to the family parties. And
it was like the sense of overwhelmment of having to do all this thing and all these things, parties and buying gifts in what we consider a relatively short period of time based on the 12-month cycle. We do it all in 1 month, right?
Yep.
You could even add in, Thanksgiving into that, which, it was a whole month period. And so I think because we don't do that throughout the year, psychologically, there seems to be this overwhelmment. But I'm like, why are you overwhelmed? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, ask that question, they have no idea.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Or if you ask the question, did you experience this last year? Oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
And I should say they don't have an idea. It's their excuse can't be questioned. Like, why? Oh, because everyone's coming over and everyone's sleeping in my house is, whatever situation I have coming from out of town. So see, living in Arizona, a lot of people like to come here during the holidays because it's chilly, but it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And
no snow on the ground. You can still get out. So we got sunshine.
If you live in Arizona and someone, a relative of yours lives in Wisconsin, they like, can I come out for Christmas?
Can I come see
please? I'm like, yeah.
That's exactly it. And I personally watch these cycles, or this cycle specifically this year in 2020, or the end of 2024 heading into where we are now in 2025. I watched as if, like you were saying, we experience this, this great, end of year rest period, etc. And then people kind of get this like end of the year blues, like, oh my God, I got to go back to work, and I just want to relax, and this pulling feeling. And what I personally witnessed this year was I watched that feeling and go, no, I've felt that before last year. And the year before that,
in kindergarten,
and the year before that, and I started going, wait a second, I don't need to be pulled in this. This is just a pattern. This is another habit, another set of stories that I've always told myself at this time of year.
Yeah,
and it's that level of awareness that allows you to go, huh.
Yeah, and I like how you related that what you said about going back to work, or for some people going back to school, what have you. Mm-hmm. And I even know people that are retired that don't go back to work. They still go through the same cycle because it's imprinted in their being.
Absolutely.
Without necessarily being aware of it. So, and a lot of people think, well, that's why a lot of people like want to get to a point where they retire and not have to go to work or win the lottery, so to speak. I'm like, yeah, but if you don't recognize these patterns, it doesn't matter if you win, $1 billion. These things are going to keep coming up.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what we're going to talk about today. Yep. They're just patterns. That's all it is. And when you recognize the pattern, you actually start to shift and break the pattern. Mm-hmm. Don't necessarily try to stop it, but distance yourself from it. Notice it. Like,
exactly.
Oh my God, why am I feeling bad? Oh, it's December 26th. Mm-hmm. And Christmas is over if you're, celebrate the Christmas holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to feel, there's nothing to look forward to, except for another 12 months. And,
yep.
and that's too far away. And all of a sudden, you have this mind chatter that's telling this weird narrative story when I'm like, wow, you have cycles every single day, but yet we create so much attention to this one period of time, and we get put off by it. I'm not saying we should change the holiday, keep it, but why should I feel any different, say, on Christmas Eve
mm-hmm.
than I do on the 26th? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Okay, yeah, having a different day or a different outlook or even feeling different, there's nothing wrong with that, but it shouldn't be premised with somber and excitement on either side. There should be peace in both, right?
Absolutely.
And even though you have that, it's just, when you step back, it's just a cycle. That's all it is. And we were primed for the cycle. But say you grew up in the Middle East and a Muslim, you wouldn't have this time of year.
Not at all.
Because they don't cycle within. They don't recognize Christmas holiday, based on.
I like that you said the mind chatter part, because I think the mind chatter, at least for me, when I was going through this last couple of weeks, I started to realize, I was like, man, it's the self-talk. It is absolutely the self-talk that is where we're getting caught up. That is the mental mind pattern. Oh my God, I got to go back to work in a couple of days. Oh my God, I overspent money this holiday. Oh my God, my bills are racking up. It's this, oh shit feeling, and it comes down to our self-talk. How are we talking to ourselves? We are the I am. We are the creator. We are the source. Yeah. And to talk to ourselves in this way and in this fashion and then be surprised why we feel that way is foolishness. We should be saying, oh, of course I'm going to feel that way if I'm talking to myself like that. And so I quickly was like, would shift the self-talk when I was talking to myself. Oh yeah, I've felt this before, but I don't have to feel that again this year. In fact, I'm going to use this energy as to create from. I'm going to take a new spin with this, and it's like, holy shit! I've now just rewrote my path. I just, rather than going down this path of suffering or back to another year of this. You being the alchemist that we are, shifting that into a more preferential direction, which is, hey, I know what this feeling is. I don't have to allow myself, to be overcome or overwhelmed with these feelings of stress or anxiety. I can breathe into it. I can breathe new life into it. I'm going to use this as a launching pad to allow myself today, starting in this moment right now, to feel good. And that changes everything. Yeah,
it's the recognition of falling into that pattern is a separation. It's like when you understand that, oh, this is happening, the witnessing of it actually literally changes everything all the time. But then what happens is when people recognize I'm feeling sad here, they're trying to mitigate the outside world. Then they start to say, well, why can't we have Christmas every day? Or maybe we should get rid of Christmas. So they're trying to fix the outside world or rearrange the furniture in the house to make you feel good about your house. That's a temporary fix. It doesn't really work long time. And after a while of rearranging your house, after a couple times a year or what have you, you realize why bother? It doesn't have any long-lasting results. It's because we tend to be conditioned into feeling good about a condition outside of us. And we're here to set forth in this podcast talking about no, there is no outward condition that can make you feel good unless you have a definition to that, or even make you feel bad unless you have a definition of it. And that's just resistance to what actually is happening.
Yeah.
All right. We're not here to deny the outside world. We're here to explore it and look at it as if we're a child with newborn eyes looking at a mountain or what have you. We don't know. And so we go in with that wisdom because, you get to a certain age, ignorance isn't awarded to us, but wisdom is, where it could be the new aged ignorance, if you will. I don't know what is age, but when I look at it, I'm like, I'm not supposed to know what's supposed to happen. And even if you feel down, like, oh, this is interesting. Let me see how far down I could go into somber to see what's rooted. And what we come and understand is there's patterns, resistant patterns in our body that we're holding on to. Like Eckhart Tolle would call it the pain body.
Yeah.
And there's something in us that maybe happened when we were a child, right? And if you've, had this, and it might have happened when you were a child, Christmas is really good, but then you got really sad when you had to go back to school, and you didn't know why, right? Because there was so much hype, and people told you you're supposed to get excited. Why aren't you excited? And so there's excitement here. So we were given a definition. Excitement comes through Santa Claus coming down your chimney. Mm-hmm. But when you think about this, say you're a Muslim child, right? Your excitement came somewhere else. They weren't neglected excitement. They just didn't wait for Santa Claus to come down the chimney. Mm-hmm. Or if you were Jewish, same thing. So it's like, so all the Christian kids were somewhat let down after the holiday. And, I'm sure during Hanukkah and other Kwanzaa and all these religions, where they put so much attention, hype to it, it was a letdown. But why is that? And that's what we're here to recognize. And it's not about trying to figure out why. It's when you're in it, how can you mitigate it? Well, you could change the outside world. That will temporarily do it. All right. The other thing you could do is just sit there and feel the energy. And this is a direct route, self-inquiry. If you're not ready for the direct route, breathing is the closest thing to the direct route. And then there's other modalities such as hypnotherapy, meditation. Well, to me, meditation, I try not to look at meditation as a modality. Meditation is something we should be doing all the time.
A regular practice.
Yeah. Even beyond the practice. In other words, a great musician doesn't practice, they just play. Mm-hmm. So meditation is the playing of the great musician type of thing, Yeah. But yet, at some point you have to sit back and, as a great musician, come up with a new, step away from the instrument per se, or maybe hold on to the instrument in a different light and allow a new tune come in, a new piece of music come in. Then you could then put it out into the world. So you go into your imagination, and then through your imagination comes flowing through without even having any resistance to it. So in other words, why aren't we in a meditative state all day long? Whether we're sitting on a couch in lotus position with your headphones on with very peaceful music, maybe in a dark room, eyes closed type of thing, or driving in your car. So with breathing, putting your attention to breathing, so I can get into that meditative state means becoming familiar with, what's the word meditation is, why aren't I familiar with high energy? What's high energy? The energy is flowing through my body with least or no resistance at all. And when I notice resistance, all of a sudden it creates augmentation of my breathing, my heart rate comes into play, and then, oh my God, now my heart rate's racing and my breathing is really panting. All of a sudden, what thoughts come in? Life sucks.
Yep.
How do I fix this?
Worry, fear.
I'm never going to do Christmas again. Mm-hmm. And so you start doing, and then you start chasing this rabbit down the rabbit hole. And it's not that these actual thoughts are appropriate. What do I mean? I'm like, if you're in this level, everything you're seeing is appropriate. The thing is, there's a higher level where you don't want to be here. So when people say, I'm like, anger is appropriate in the basement of your frequency, in the lower vibrations. But because you've been here, you deem that, like, why am I getting angry? This is not appropriate. I'm like, it's because you're in the basement and you're trying to see the view of the city from the basement. You can't, because there's absolutely no windows. So how do I get from the basement up to a floor in the building that's more appropriate to look outside and see what's going on? I'm like, there's the question, right? So you can go in and sit with it and watch it burst open. That's direct route to self-inquiry. Next one after that is breathing. And I love the breathing because it's easy. And there's different modalities of breathing, but a simple one is just you breathe in, and talked about this many times, going to talk about many times over. It's just, if you breathe in at a 4 count, breathe out at a 6 to 8 count. Slow it down. You're going to slow your heart rate down. When your heart rate slows down, your brainwave pattern slows down. You go into a different frequency. Now you go from high beta, maybe to low beta, maybe to theta. And then when you're in those states, all of a sudden, the thoughts that were there before seem ridiculous.
No longer pulling at you.
They're not appropriate. So the darkness and no windows are not appropriate on the 10th story of the building because there's a lot of windows, so to speak. So you don't have to worry about that. So when you're acting what you call out of sync, don't try to mitigate it from that place. Get out of that place by stepping back, stopping what you're doing. Self-inquiry is a really good thing. And it's like, why am I here? All of a sudden, just noticing you're in the basement lifts you up beyond the basement.
Yeah, it's like a fresh restart, if you will.
Yeah, because you can't be in something and witness it at the same time.
Yep. And I like that you brought up Eckhart, too, because I was telling you this earlier. A couple days ago, one of his videos popped up, and I was watching it. And he was talking about how when we fall into these lower states, these lower vibrations, the level of consciousness that we're talking about, we actually are linking up, like within like our city, he said, a very hive mind effect. So when we drop into these lower levels of worry, fear, stress, anxiety, we're actually linking up with this hive mind of people on that vibration. So it makes those feelings even more real. And then we're seeing more of it on our social media, and then we're seeing more of it in the news articles that start coming up, and we're like, holy shit, the world is going to shit. And that is what sucks us in and pulls us into this, arduous, very tough situation. And it feels so real, and it's so overwhelming. The trick is, like Frank was just describing, is to step out of that. Be aware that, hey, the more I feed into this situation, the more I'm getting pulled into it. Just like we've talked about in the past, kind of like the Chinese finger trap. The more we pull and tug and stress, the tighter the grip becomes on it. And it isn't until we let go that we can, that wasn't as bad as I thought. Yeah. We get out of it. And so becoming aware of this is the key, because once you're aware, it's easier to step out. And so through the breath, through this direct route of direct inquiry, sitting with oneself, becoming silent, this is where we take back our power. And I think where a lot of people get tripped up on this is it's too simple. It's too easy. Like, what do you mean I just need to relax the body, and then things start to relax, or relax the mind, or slow down, the process. That sounds like we've been taught backwards for so long in our lives that anything good is really difficult. And, in order to accomplish this, you must do this, and that. And if you don't have all of these things yet, you can't be happy. And that's just not the case. You have to go directly to the state that you want to experience. If that is a state of peace, if that is a state of love, how would you feel? Feel that now.
Yeah.
Step into that now. Because like we've always talked about, the only moment we have is now. And so when we come from that space, just like on that our last episode, I believe it was, what St. Francis of Assisi said, what you are searching for is where you are searching from. So this desire, this level of peace, this level of, wealth, relationship, whatever, you have to start from there. How would you feel if you had that now? Feel that now. And wow.
Yeah, and also know this, there's people out there listening, but how do I get to that place? One, the direct route is just recognize you're in that. It doesn't mean to stop it, because like anything, say I started playing the piano. Would I start trying to play Mozart or Beethoven? The answer is no. I would start with scales. And then as I practice my scales, get better at scales, I'll understand how to then fall into the idea of playing anywhere close to Mozart or Beethoven piece of music. So in the beginning, the unfamiliar attributes of playing the piano, or the aspect, I should say, of playing the piano, is where the difficulty is. But that's where the brilliance of life is, right? Because I like that part of the difficulty. It means I'm learning something new. So we actually know that. It's like, this is interesting. Like, so over time, as I keep playing it, all of a sudden now I become so familiar with it. It's no longer hard. So when Mike and I are saying it's easy, yeah, because we've been practicing for a while. But in the beginning, when I go to another level, there seems to be a little resistance. And what's the resistance? Is it worth going this far? Do I keep going? And the answer is always and forever yes. Mm-hmm. Because through that resistance, now I actually enjoy the feeling of resistance. Now it's no longer resistance, it's a challenge. I'm not trying to resist it. I realize it's a challenge. So when I feel that G-force feeling, like a plane taking off the ground, you feel that. Mm-hmm. But once it gets to the altitude in which you're going to be flying, all of a sudden all the resistance disappears. But this is going to continue happening throughout our lives. But now I'm recognizing that resistance is a leveling up.
Yes.
So the other thing Mike mentioned about how we all connect in at this certain level and we're stuck here. Well, that's what it is start to look at, if you study any bit of history, you don't have to be a history major, but just look back. The way we think, the way we live is so far greater than, say, 1,000 years ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We live like kings.
So don't look at last year as a problem. There's just a natural pattern there's a natural progression in all human beings is to elevate to higher levels. So you don't have to knock 2024 in order to enjoy 2025. Matter of fact, you don't have to knock anything in history. It's just like, we always want to step into something new. It's the going into the proverbial, the door. I mean, what the hell is the word?
Oh, you're talking about
the door,
the revolving door.
Revolving door. Thank you.
Yeah.
My brain just went into freaking. Mm-hmm. So the proverbial revolving door. Once I realize I'm in a revolving door, I then can see the opening and go straight through.
Yep.
But then I laugh at the fact I got stuck in the revolving door, not like the revolving door. Because the revolving door, at some level, gives you options to keep going, look around, see what's happening.
I got to check this, and I got to check that.
Yeah, so now you go in
Is this okay still?
Yeah, you've seen everything. And, but yet then you even look at the cycle of how the physical world works. Like you look at the planetary system hovering around or spinning around the sun. And then the sun is still spinning around some big black hole. And when you look at it, it looks like a snail shell, right? So we're being pulled around. So everything is cycling around. But what happens is it keeps getting wider. Because the closer we get to the black hole, it's going to be a very long turnaround. So everything's expanding that way. And then what happens? We fall into the black hole. That I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I can't help you there. But I imagine it'll be interesting, and another cycle of that will come out on the other side. It'll be a different experience. But nonetheless, I don't want to get too sidetracked. But you see what I'm saying? Everything is a cycle. But as we expand it, we go in. We don't want to stay in this circle. We want to keep expanding it like a spiral staircase that's moving up. So there's nothing wrong with these patterns. It's recognizing, instead of just doing this, I'm doing this. And spiraling up. Kind of like elevating up and spiral, like a spiral staircase, getting you to a higher level. And as I get to a higher level, I could see more and more and more and more. And therefore, then we also have opportunities for other people to elevate up.
Well, the spiral staircase, I love that, because that's totally what this is. Like this cycle, like when I started to feel this come after Christmas, that feeling of, oh my God, back to the swing of the thing, back to the right. It was me being aware of the pattern, but not in a negative way, like, bringing me down, like, this is something that I've felt over and over. Yeah. I don't have to feel this way. and I was elevating up as I was experiencing that. It wasn't getting rid of the feeling. I wasn't pushing away. It was me utilizing it, bringing awareness to it, and rising above.
And these patterns all over, like, I'm just going to bring up the song Stairway to Heaven, because that's really what we're doing. We're taking a Stairway to Heaven. And think about, like, that piece of music. When you listen to it, it starts off very slow. Mm-hmm. And then there's a point where it just kicks in. So there's these different elevations in life, and then it ends in that way. But then it keeps going. That's how the patterns are. That's why it's such a brilliant song. It starts you out very delicate, moving up, and then it takes you into this really high energy. And there's a story behind it. And however you wherever you allow the story to take you into a negative place or a positive place. When I'm looking at Stairway to Heaven, I think it's a positive thing. But nonetheless, you can put it any way you want. But you know the pattern. There's this direct pattern within that music that takes you. And that's why it's such a great song. It's very difficult to put your finger on to why, but there's a beautiful pattern going on. And hey, everyone is taking a stairway to heaven. What I mean, like, we want to keep getting to a greater place. And we look at heaven as a greater place than hell. But what is hell? Hell is the fire at your feet making you move up the ladder. So hell is a great place to start. Why? Because the heat is elevating the hot air balloon. Mm. Like, so now, like, heaven and hell are synonymous. They're supportive of each other, not opposing each other. But when heaven and hell are opposing each other, you got a dilemma.
And one thing I want to touch on too is when you're experiencing this hell, keep going. And the best part about this hell is how quickly you get out of it. And it's simply by trusting, going within, letting go. We're talking a matter of days. Things can change.
Yeah, when you go through it, you realize that wasn't hell. That was heaven.
That's the whole spectrum of everything being love.
That's really, when you go through something, what we call going through hell, it's to deep root put your deep root into the ground, so to speak, so the tree can grow higher. Yeah. So there's some value in there, a great value in there. So now it's we're looking at hell. So when you feel a little somber on the 26th, or whenever you feel it, you just look at it like you're deep rooting something, right? And then sit with it. And that somber will turn into strength. Mm-hmm. And that's where the alchemy of us comes in. But if you try to avoid it, put it aside, distract yourself by putting on Netflix or going out and meet friends, okay, do that. It's going to come back and hit you. We know that. So the time for us distracting ourselves, for me personally, it's gone. I can't do that anymore. I can't distract me. Some days I want to, but then I'm like, shit, okay, I'm going to sit with this. And I don't know why I say, oh shit, because I know what's going to happen in the end.
No, totally. It's just that normal feeling coming up and the adverse reaction,
and I'm
recognizing that.
Yeah, I'm no longer running from somber sadness. It's part of the cycle within, but it no longer has a hold on me because part of who I am is witnessing it. The thing that's witnessing me being tired isn't tired. It's that thing that was in me when I was a 10-year-old boy, and now that I'm 57, whatever was in the 10-year-old is still in the 57. That did not age.
Exactly.
It could witness what it was like being 10. It could witness what it's like being now sitting in front of these microphones with Mike. And it's still there. It's just the construct of Frank Daly is the thing playing out the experiences, getting involved in the experiences, right? We're not here to say don't get involved. I'm like, no, go into it. Like a great actor does a role.
See, and that's the ego. You hear all these like spiritual people out there talking about, killing the ego and all that. It's yes, recognize the ego, become aware of it. But if without the ego, how do you experience life? Yeah. How would you experience this identity character? How would you have these beautiful moments that we all cherish so much? It's through the ego that we experience. So it's understanding, okay, it's like this fine balance. It's understanding that, I have created this identity through which I experience, but I am not that identity. And so it's like this breaking away of, and this way you hear people talk about ego death, the war, killing the ego and stuff like that. You have to become aware that this is not you. You are not this character that you have to live and, work through and develop through. You can step back from this character, choose the experience you want to have, and then set forth and allow that character to experience new things, not, oh, this character is in this place. And for this character to get to where I want it to be, this character has to accomplish this, that, this, and the other. No. Simply set the destination that you now want the character experience and get out of the way.
Yeah, because now it's a completely different character.
Exactly.
Just like any actor that sets onto a movie, the director will say, okay, did you play this type of character, this type of character? In order to do that, you have to go back to the beginning and start doing Mentos commercials. I always say that because they're the funniest, weirdest commercials.
I remember those growing up.
And so if you never did a Mentos commercial and then didn't do some other piece of work, and if you didn't step on stage and do Shakespeare, you can't enter onto the field of my set. But that's not how it works. You can literally pick up a character in an instant. And, obviously most actors will pick up a character and it takes a little time to develop. Some are better than others. Some can jump right into it. But nonetheless, the time we see it, they fully develop the character. But what would a video game be without a character? Nothing. It'd be like this weird montage of little moving, beeping sounds. Mm-hmm. Now, when people talk about killing the ego, I'm like, yeah, there's higher realms, but we came here to play within this field of humanity, all right? We get to higher frequencies, right? We won't need a body. If you don't need a body, you don't have an ego. You don't have that. But in the physical body, because I'm here, I'm not trying to get out of it. I think that's a misconception of people. I want to get out of here. I'm like, where are you trying to get out of? Mm-hmm. Like, why not sit and seed yourself in it and see what happens? And when you sit yourself and seed yourself within that, what you get out of is the misery of it. I'm like, man, this is fun. I'm like, yeah, it is,
And I think, again, going back to the importance and value by how we're directing the attention, how we're labeling it, how our self-talk is this experience. And like I watched this New Year's Eve and stuff, here, like just speaking with like family and friends and hearing them kind of talk about like the new year and their New Year's resolutions. And I watched some of these different people that I know were talking about, like I'm going to make a resolution. Oh my God. My goal is just, to survive another year. And the self-talk there, like, is just gut wrenching because the cool
thing about surviving for a year, like if 2026 comes up and you survived, you actually did it.
You achieved you've got to check off the list.
Yeah, that might be the way to go. Like,
but the level of self-talk there, like I would never allow myself the bare minimum because I understand how this realm works now. I would never have this self-talk of, I literally listened and witnessed, these individuals, chat about like, oh yeah, I don't even need to worry about setting goals because I never achieved them. Yeah. And that is setting the stage for failure, and it's actually living up to what your expectations are. And so, like, how you talk to yourself, that is by far the most important thing that I can really hammer home for those listening, is you're framing your experience every moment. And when you're framing it in a way of growth, a way of love, a way of respect, compassion, success, wealth, abundance, you will experience that. I promise you, that's how this reflection works. And the opposite is so the same.
Yeah, and I think, because what you touched on right there has to do with conditionality. So a lot of people are setting goals of conditions. That's why they don't do them anymore. Like, you get to a certain age, you stop doing that. Like, I want to lose weight. I'm like, why? Because, okay, I'm healthy. I'm like, no, you want to lose weight because you think you'll be happier. Yeah. So maybe in the beginning, you go on this diet and it lasts you till March, right? In the interim,
that would be a long time, by the way.
Yeah.
If you go 90 days, most people are.
I've given the benefit of the doubt. Yeah,
30.
And you lose the weight, what have you. And say you get to your goal by March, right? And you lose the weight. Now all of a sudden, now what? All of a sudden, because it's conditioned. So that tapers off and falls off. Then you have to pick something else up, or you just start eating again and gain the weight back, and you get very discouraged next time. So I'm not setting goals, because most people's goals are premised on the result of the outside world. I'm like, that is the biggest problem. Like, you should never state, this is what I want to happen, because then you're already starting on one leg, because like I didn't invent the world. I didn't invent the sun, the stars, the moon. So why should I then try to gather in my universe and say it must go this way? Especially being 8,000 people on the planet that want the same thing, and their energy's generating this. I'm like, wow, it's so much easier to step in and say, this is interesting. Let me flow with this. I trust the universe and my guidance system that would put me on this track. Let me flow with this and see how it goes. Oh, wow, interesting. Ooh, that pain was interesting, or that opening my heart was interesting. Wow. Because the thing that's watching it doesn't need any of that. But yet, I don't need to go to a movie, but damn, do I enjoy it. So my soul is like watching Frankie run around and just watch. He's going to say something stupid to his wife right now. Like, why don't you do it again? That's great. And I believe that's where the humor comes from, because you could see things happen. Like, again, like what happened to me, like I'll be sitting there and you get into this feeling and your energy drops. You drop to the basement. So from a physical standpoint, I went down to a different level, right? So I'm here talking to my wife, and within 10 seconds, I went down here. And all of a sudden, a thought comes in, and if I acted out or said something, I would have been in trouble. But there's something in me that knows all levels and says, hey, do you really want to say that at that level? Because she's here and you're here. If you say that, you're going to pull her down so quickly. Yep. You're going to suffer from it, and so is she. And why would you want to see your loved one suffer? So then what happens is I recognize that and I start laughing. And then she's like, why are you laughing? I can't tell you.
I can't walk you through these steps.
I have to like explain where I was and what I was thinking, and if I said this, and she's like, and I did that once with her, and she didn't find it funny.
You want to? Kayla and I will talk about that too. That type of feeling. We call it playing in the mud. Yeah, we're like, hey, we don't need to get down and play in the mud over this, And what we mean by that, for those listening, is you can feel yourself when you're falling into that lower vibration. That person cuts you off, and now you're getting all upset, and you're trying to pull up next to him to give him the finger. You're playing in the mud, rather than taking the foot off the gas, saying, oh man, what if that person's mom just got in the hospital and they're rushing to see them? Yeah. Changes the whole perspective. Holy shit. I went from screw this person, they're a piece of shit, to, oh my God, you please take, onto your path. And either perspective is right,
Yeah, because like Mike said, like I like that analogy, playing in the mud. If you want to play in the mud, leave everyone out of it. Yeah. Like if I'm playing in the mud, like if for a moment I was playing in the mud in my head, but I didn't throw mud on my wife, because she wasn't. She was, playing on the grass.
Yeah, right.
She was.
No, exactly.
She was
playing
on
solid.
Mud. She was playing on solid ground. So if I flung mud at her, I could have pulled her into the mud pit. Why would I do that?
Nope.
So by me not pulling her into the mud pit became a very interesting, fun experience. Came out of it. So then what happens is, like, I'm in front of people and like this podcast or whatever, and all of a sudden I'll tell the story and everyone starts laughing, because laughter to me is one of the greatest. It is the greatest turnaround of energy.
Absolutely.
If you can make yourself laugh. So I could be thinking about something sad and like, man, if I said that and a friend of mine heard me, like, what the hell? And all of a sudden I find humor in that. That's what gets me out of it. So laughter is the quickest perspective shift. That's why comedians will be telling the story and they're going, and they don't just make a right or left. They actually switch back, and you're like, hard. You didn't see that coming hard, and you have to laugh because it's energy. It's like you're on the precipice about the story, and you think it's going this direction. Oh, that was I didn't see that coming. Yep. That's why when people are walking along, like everyone walks perfectly, and then someone trips and falls, your first reaction is to laugh because it's a disturbance, like you didn't see that coming. You want to hide it, but then you go up and help the person. You realize, okay,
of course,
yeah, but I'm not that cruel. But
it's that shift and change.
Like I had this client,
you have the awareness.
Yeah, this happens to me all the time. I had a client in my chair, 8:00 in the morning on Saturday, and she's 88 years old.
Holy,
yeah, and she comes in. I love this woman, and we're talking. And she's asking about like TV shows. And I'm like, do you ever see Dexter? Because they came out with a new series where he's like a teenager.
I heard about this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's like, no, I never seen it. It's like, what's it about? I'm like, it's about a serial killer. And she looks at me. It's like, what? I'm like, yeah, no, it's a good one. Because he kills people who deserve to die. So I was getting into it. And then she's like, she says, so the name of the show is she didn't even say anyone near Dexter. It was like, passion. I'm like, no, it's Dexter. It's like, oh, I can't hear. I'm like, my wife's going to kill me for this. I'm like, I said, it's Dexter. Like that.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this 80-something-year-old woman, because she didn't have a hearing aid, and I pretended to do like sign language.
Yeah.
She literally almost fell out of a chair. I thought I was going to have to give her CPR for laughing.
Dying laughing?
Yeah, dying laughing. Then I started laughing. And I'm like,
contagious,
yeah,
man.
it was funny because she's like, what the hell's wrong with him? Like, I don't know.
It just came out.
The second you told me you couldn't hear me, something popped out of me. And
again, all in jest, all in good fun. That contagious energy she picked up on.
Yeah, what's funny is whenever you try and tell that story, it's never funny. So my wife, like, that was cruel. Why the hell would you do that? I'm like, the woman's not really deaf.
I was going to say.
And deaf people couldn't hear what I'm saying anyways.
So we don't have any problem.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with it.
But that's, again, the lightness, the intent, the feeling behind it, people can feel. There was no ill will behind that statement.
No.
Hence the woman cracking, turning over,
or
laughing.
I could have yelled louder and said, Dexter.
Yeah.
So...
but that was probably a laugh that medicine was so good for that 88-year-old woman.
I literally myself was crying. It's
good for both of you.
When I watched her laugh, and she literally almost fell out of the chair, and my first thought was, I'm going to have to give this woman CPR. I'm like, this is not how I want to start my day.
Yeah, right? 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
Bright and early. No, but that's a perfect example of like how comedians work too.
Yeah,
like the comedians, they don't mean anything by that, and that's why comedy, has started to go by the wayside. And you see all these comedians coming out saying, "Hey, look, this culture that we're developing, where like
too sensitive,
too sensitive. It, we have to have these moments of laughter, etc. And intent is everything, and that's again brings us back to what we're talking about here. If your intent is to have this amazing new year, of growth and excitement and abundance, then why would you be returning to these old patterns of fear, doubt, anxiety, stress?
Yeah,
and expecting anything different.
I like how you brought the comedian thing, because like if you take something like being sad and you are serious about it and study it, you'll actually go deeper into sadness without any resolution. Because you'll have an excuse why you're sad.
Mm-hmm. Actually, you'll have several.
Oh, yeah. You'll have a whole list of it.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like when someone's like, write a pro and con list. Like, hey, I don't know what to do. They're like, well, take a column and put a line, and make 2 columns, pros and cons. And I realized I did this like 3 times in my life. And I realized the third time I was doing it, I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing in the world. Because if I'm feeling really good, my pro list is crazy.
Huge.
And my con list is... like 2 things. I had to make shit up, by the way. I'm in this really good place. I got to make something up, But then when I was in a bad place, there was like one thing and the thing I made up in my pro list was like, hey, I don't believe this shit at all. I'm reaching. So it's like, what state am I in when I write the damn list? I'm like, so stop writing lists, people. Just get into the state and where it's all pro list.
What is the state?
And your pro list is different than my pro list. And, in the beginning, it might sound like you have to fake it to make it, just like when I was learning the piano, which I'm not personally learning piano. I had to start with scales, so it seemed very contrived. I had to really, really focus. But then after a while, when I learned, like I say guitar, when I started learning how to do that, I don't have to think about it. I just have to think about like, okay, there's a sound in me that's coming out, and also my hands know where to go on the guitar. And I stop playing those scales and transform them into songs. That's the beauty of it. So a lot of us are learning how to play scales on piano right now, and that's okay.
Yeah,
it's always going to be that way in certain what we call areas of our life. But the overarching area, the one that's witnessing it, is already better than Chopin on the piano.
Yeah.
The thing that's watching it, like sitting back, like Donald Duck, not Donald Duck.
I know what you're talking about. The rabbit.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Which one? I can't even think of shit today.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
Like chomping on the carrot, like just sitting back all cool as all hell.
Yep.
That's our internal guidance system. It knows everything. It can see everything. It can see where it's going. It knows how to move us. And it allows us to do things. Just like it allowed Elmer Fudd to still put the shells in the shotgun and not be alarmed. It knew to move out of the way.
It's funny you bring that up too. So like you'll hear Frank talk about that, or I'm sure you've all heard Frank talk about this. Like with why do we love characters like 007, James Bond, these types of characters, and it's because they remain cool, calm in situations that you could be like, what? How are they in this? How would they ever get out of this? But that cool, calm state allows them to not only get through, but get through with ease and success, and like it was nothing. And so last night, my brother's like, "Hey, I saw this great movie. I want to show you. I just rented it." And I'm like, "All right." Forgot the name of it. It was some long title, something like The Unimaginable something Men. What the movie's about is about these this group that gets it's based on a true story. Winston Churchill was was in the battle. It was with the Nazis, and he hired this group of men to go in unsanctioned mission, and their job was to rob this boat from the Nazis to essentially stop them from being able, to their takeover of Britain is what it was about.
Yeah.
And in that, the group of these men that were hired were told, like, hey, this is a crazy mission. It's not sanctioned. If
no
the Brits catch it, if the Nazis catch it, you guys are dead.
We don't know
this
who
never
you are.
Existed, know? And so they need to gather this group of crazy, mad men to accomplish this. And all I could think about as they're going through it, because they had some crazy hurdles they had to cross. But these group of, I think it was 5 men, their demeanor, their calm, cool, collected demeanor remained the same the entire time.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is great. This reminds me so much of what Frank was always talking about with like the 007 characters. You're like enamored by like how they're able to stay cool in these situations. And that directly correlates with our everyday life.
Yeah.
And you can see it, look at the people that we respect or people that we look up to or, admire. They, when a tough situation arises, do they start freaking out? Do they start losing their shit, saying, this is going to be the end, I'm never going to get through this? No, the exact opposite. Hey, we've got this. Let's stay calm. Let's move forward. Let's be calculated, and it's recognizing the energy that we're carrying with us and what state of being. What is our state of being? Are we coming from a place of worry? Are we coming from a place of stress? Or are we coming from a place of knowing? And the more we can get back to that state of knowing, that cool, calm confidence, the more we'll start to have the preferential experiences that we are looking for. The more we'll begin to enjoy and flow with life rather than fight it.
Yeah. And you bringing up James Bond remind me, like, this would be a great idea, whoever writes the James Bonds, is to let's see James Bond as a child where he wasn't cool and calm and collect.
Yeah, right.
And what did he do to work to that level?
To develop
there's a lot, like right now in a lot of movies, we're starting to do what they call backstories. Yeah, we did that. They did that in Wicked. They're doing it all the time now. Why? It's because we want to know, like when we hear about certain people, like Jesus, right? We hear about him being born, and then we hear about him finding the apostles and telling this great story. What we're really looking at now is from when he was a young teenager till he was,
right?
when he reappeared. What was he doing?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm not a historian. There are accounts that he went to places like India and Egypt and learned from sages on how to do this work.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be better off for us to tell the story of James Bond when he wasn't cool and calm and collective and what he did to get there. Not that we're going to do the same thing, but it's like, because when you're like not looking at yourself as, I wish I could be that. I'm like, everyone wishes to be Michael Jordan, but if you then stepped into Michael Jordan back in high school and you followed him along, are you willing to do the work?
Mm-hmm.
Did Michael Jordan have natural attributes? Yes, he did, but he's 6'7", right? Where I don't even know that ranks in level of height in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm not
but
sure.
The level of play he had, like he had a higher vertical jump than most people that were even taller than him, what have you. But it was his continuous work ethic that got him there. So we're like, oh yeah, I want to be like Mike. I'm like, all right, this is what it's going to take to be like Mike. Are you willing to do that? And my question for you, or my statement to you, is why wouldn't you want to? What else are you doing?
Yeah.
Because the other way is it's going to lead you down a rope of mediocrity, and we don't want that.
No.
So the spiritual journey really is about digging in and going in and bring it on, baby. I don't want, like, even when I call preferential, I only know it based off of past experiences. I just want to bring it on. And my preference now becomes bring it on rather than I want to be, retired with $1 million living on Maui. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, that's a nice thing, but that's not going to grow me. That's not the place. I didn't come here just to do that. So all of a sudden it's like, well, what is the work? The work is stepping into something that was uncomfortable for you, but now you're actually going to find comfort in it. And we know that, like, just jumping into cold water, like, there's different studies on different attributes of the cold water. But the one thing I could tell you without ever doing the study, it literally changes your psyche in a moment. You wake up in the morning, jump in a cold shower. You go from being tired to like, I hope it's going to be a good day, to like, hell yeah.
Yep.
Your dopamine's raising from a chemical standpoint. But just the willingness to go into a cold shower, especially in the winter, mm-hmm. and I don't care where you live, or a cold plunge, that right there states you want to grow from that. And the cool thing is there's no diminished results from that. There's only exponential. But if I keep going into the comfort, each comfort, like one cookie, then now it's a whole bag of cookies, you get the same feeling. And by the last cookie, it's completely diminished value.
And that's a perfect example because we all experience that during this holiday season.
I only have to do one cold plunge or one cold shower a day. I don't need to keep doing it like, oh yeah, I'm up to 10 a day. I'm like, what?
No.
Yeah.
I was going to say, every morning it's still a challenge flipping that all the way to cold for me.
Like in other words, I also know that I don't need more sleep to feel better. Mm-mm. Right? So there's something within the recognition of pattern. So when you head into the and what is the unknown? The unknown is, everything's unknown, by the way. Yeah. But what is the unknown from a spiritual standpoint? The unknown is let go of how it's supposed to happen, what's supposed to turn out. But what happens is people want to go into the known, and they have an expectation, like, it didn't happen quite the way it did, and they go in the cycle. And all it is, it's just repeating the story in your head, and you don't get the same results. So what do you call that, Mike?
Yeah, insanity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so we live in the insane world, not because the first time we did it was wrong. No. But by the fourth time you're doing it, trying to get the same result, that's where the problem lies. So what happened in history wasn't problematic. It's keep repeating it and look for a different result. Yeah. Like, no.
And that's where most of us are staying, where we stay stuck.
Yeah.
We do that. And so it's funny, like, I like how you said, what is the unknown? Because this wasn't too long ago. I was thinking about this before Christmas. And what we call the unknown is actually a place of no thought, is what I realized. Because and I really started to implement this in my own journey. Because what we try to do is we wake up and, Dr. Joe Dispenza, I remember saying this, like, we check like our Facebook, we check our Instagram, we check all this like social media stuff, okay?
To see if you're okay.
Yeah, to see
am I doing good?
What news, did something break? We're checking all these different things. And what we're doing is we're like just actually confirming all thoughts. Like, oh, I'm going to check this, I'm going to do that. So we're like verifying our thoughts. And so the way to get into the unknown is to stop thinking the same thoughts. And it's to get out of this, and this is difficult because I watch myself try to do this, like especially with like social media and stuff. You like want to check and like what's new going on today and things like that. But that's pulling you back into the same slow moving cycle story of I must do this in order for this to happen. And you don't have these big breakthroughs of things. And it's because you're playing the same character each and every day, and you got to get out of the same routines of the same character. Well, what are the same routines? It's the same thoughts. And so the easiest way for me to break this down for myself personally was I was like, I need to stop thinking the same thoughts. And how do I do that? Okay, I can do that by two things: no thought and new thought.
Yeah.
And that's how I began to kind of approach things.
And then how do you get into that state of that?
Well, relaxing. Calming, just simply letting go of knowing like, okay, so for me personally, what I did was I reminded myself of where I currently am. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm in the best place of my life I've ever been. These have been the best last 6-7 years of my life. And so for me, I went and said, I know I can have complete trust in this because I've experienced it. There's no doubt this is the best moment or the best time period of my life. And so whatever I'm doing, and have been doing is the direction I want to be going.
Yep.
And so what have I been doing? And it's what we're talking about here, these practices. So it allows me to let go a little bit more. And this is why we tell people, like that one episode we had a long time ago where you start with something stupid, picturing the oranges and then watching the orange show up.
Yeah, something mundane. Yeah,
you need to have these things that are like confirmations. It's kind of like a validation, like, oh, I'm doing this. Yeah. And this is why it's what I like about this experience is when you do start the practice and you do it, things change really quickly. It's not like you start this practice and it's going to take you 2 years to have a synchronicity. No, you're going to start having synchronicities that day. And it's like, holy shit. And so it's like this really like snowballing momentum. But getting back to it, it's the same thoughts that we're having every day is the reason we're staying stuck.
Yeah.
And so we have to let go of thought, which is really hard. And we've actually... we never do this. We're always constantly in thought, walking around the whole day narrating, I don't want this to happen, and I still got to do this, and I got this on the to-do list. And we're just holding ourselves in this little bubble, and that's why we're not growing.
Yeah, but the opportunity is always in front of us to grow. So,
but we have to let go of these old thoughts.
Depending where you are in your world, like. Think about a situation that, like, you wake up and look at your emails, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking up your emails to see how your day's going to go, like, okay, let's take the stock market. You wake up in the morning, like, see, did my money go up or down? So if you wake up first thing in the morning and you have a definition that's planted in the frequency patterns in your body and says, if the money goes up, I feel good. Or if the money goes down, I feel bad. I'm like, that's the point where you have to realize, why am I thinking that? All right. I'm not here to tell people don't look at your emails, don't look at your stock exchange or whatever. Just why am I bothered by it? This is really the spiritual journey. Why is the money going up? Because everything in the physical world, what goes up must come down. But the journey that Mike and I are talking about isn't this pattern of staying plateau. Because what eventually happens is, I'm like, if I go up here and I always end up here, I go up here and I always end up here, I'm going to eventually not go all the way up, and I'm going to only come to this diminishing feeling. So it's a down spiral slope. Because after a while, it might go this way, goes this way. But if I'm living like this, I go up and I go down. I go up and I go down. And I go up and I go down. You're never going to want to stop that ride.
And that illustration, your last one, that is the stock market. If you look at the stock market over the last 80 years.
Yeah, it's
always going up,
since
forever will. Yep. But we have these dips. And during these dips, people panic.
Yeah,
and
they jump off buildings.
Yep, they kill themselves.
Yeah.
I can't believe I blew all my family's money. When 6 months, not even 2.5 months later, that stock reached a new high.
If you study history at all, like I said earlier, you'll know it keeps going. So there's something else out there governing the universe that has this fixed sight on a higher realm. By us not looking up and choosing it, like, in other words, I remember jumping off a bridge that was like 20 feet one time into the water. I was in high school. And I remember this kid I went with, I'm standing there looking down. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this. And he goes, no, what you do is you look at the horizon.
Yeah.
And when you look at the horizon, your stomach doesn't go up to your throat. And he told me, it's like, okay, you either put your hands over your head, cross your legs. You don't want your nuts to go up into your throat either.
Exactly.
So I did all that stuff, and I had my hands planted above my head, so I go in, and he goes, you're naturally going to hit the water. He was really cool about it. He goes, you're going to banana, so you don't go too deep. Just make sure when you hit the water, you blow out your nose so the water doesn't shove up your nose. Okay, He gave me your instructions. So I jump off, and because it was so high, it was like 20, 25 feet. I'm like, where's the water? Where's the water? And I look down, smack. But when I was looking straight ahead at the horizon, I didn't feel. I had no gauge because the horizon's so far out there. But if I was looking down, the feeling of speed came in. But because he should have told me to count. And if I counted, hit the water in X amount of seconds, it would be different. I'm like, where the fuck is the water? In my brain is like, am I falling into some black abyss? And when I look down, bam!
Right there.
I almost got knocked out in the water.
Yeah, literally.
I learned my lesson though.
Yep.
But there is something about that, looking out straight, and that's what I mean is in the world we're in right now. Don't go into the mind and think about what's going to happen later on today. Be present with the moment you're in, and that will set you up for what's about to come to you, right? Like any athlete, like when I was boxing, if I anticipated what the other fighter was going to do, throw a punch, and out of the myriad of different combinations of punches, and they didn't, I am gone in the fight. I don't anticipate anything. Yeah. I probe, I prop, I dance, I flow. When they throw a punch, I practice how to move from that punch so many times. Yeah. And when I get into flow and I dance with it, all of a sudden the fight becomes a good fight, a good match. And the whole object of that is to get me out of that flow state. And, and that's really what the game is about. It's getting me out. It's not about decimating or killing me. It's about getting me out of that flow state. And so one opponent will get the other opponent out of that point. That's why we like to watch it, right? It's not the brutality of it, I don't believe. It's the flow state. Because I think once a fighter is like, completely out of the state they're gone, the other fighter will let off. There's no need to continue. That's not where we're at. But yeah, it's like, it's this like beautiful movement and dance. But yet you are alert while you're doing it. You have to be. But the alertness isn't thinking. It's awareness. There's a difference. Thoughts are going to come in. I don't stop them. If I stop them, I'm not aware. I just let them go on by. Like, like the Navy SEAL in the jungle notices things that are coming. Like he might notice a snake walking, crawling by him, but he's also his target is like 20 meters in front of him. He's not going to look at the snake. He's going to sit quietly. Hopefully the snake doesn't notice him, because if he takes his eye off his target, the target might see him, and it won't be the snake that kills him. It will be the distraction of the snake that kills him. Mm-hmm. So just let the snake go on by, and just
let the thought
let it go on by. Just let it sliver by. If it wraps around your neck, so be it. I still got my target.
See, it's if you have these feelings like, I don't want to do it during it, but I promise as soon as it happens, you're like,
But when the soldier, the Navy SEAL, as I tell the story, and say the snake did wrap around him and slivered off and went up a tree, that's the story they're telling when they get back to their friends. And they kind of laugh at, you're not going to believe what fucking happened. I had the guy in my sights and, I couldn't get him right there. I wasn't signaled. And all of a sudden the snake's coming. You're thinking, fucking sergeant, please tell me to shoot the guy. And this freaking boa constrictor went around me, slivered up and went up a tree, but I remained steady and still. That's where we want to be. Not that we don't want the snake. I want the snake to be able to wrap itself around me and me have so much confidence that I got to stay. And, if the point I have to do something, I'll do it. But right now is not the point to do it. And then watch it just sliver through your body and continue on. And then you're like, damn, I'm good.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've had moments like that with my own manifestations where it has felt like what you just described, where you're like, I have this vision. I have this, holding this state. I'm holding this state, and things will come up, and it starts getting rocky. And most people would say, fuck this, or I can't, or of course this would happen. And nope, you just keep staying the course, keep staying in the end, keep knowing, and it works out. And it's like you can feel like your chakras open up, and it's like, oh my God.
And it wasn't that you stayed the course that you got this prize. It was the fact that you were able to stay the course is the manifestation. Yep. That is the gift right there. Yep. And then, because I stayed the course, then the prize comes out. It's like when an actor wins an award. It's not the award. It's not that golden Oscar that they stick on the shelf. It was the act of going through the movie or whatever it is they were trying to achieve, any medal, whatever. It was the process. Like a great fighter wouldn't want to just win every fight, knock the person out in the first round. There'd be no essence of glory in that. Yeah. Like you wouldn't, like if I go in there and start winning every fight in the first round, two things. I'm not fighting with the proper opponent and not testing myself. And what good is that? Mm-hmm. It does nothing. It's like learning chopsticks and trying to look at me.
That's why this experience is the way it is.
Yeah, you got to continue. And that's the brilliance of it. But people are like, it doesn't work out. It always works out. It doesn't. I guarantee it works out. So if you want to be Michael Jordan, if you want to be James Bond, I suggest you find out where they started, so to speak. What work did they put in? And then you put that forth effort. You don't have to study them down to a T, because you can't and expect the same result. That's the other problem. It's like there is only one Michael Jordan. There's only one. Well, there's several James Bonds.
There's only one of the actual characters.
Yeah, but hey, anyone out there that if they happen to listen to this and is a creator of James Bond, you should do a backstory like on James Bond when he was like in high school and growing up,
how he became so cool, calm, and confident.
Yeah, and if and if you don't need to give me credit for it.
Love it.
Just give me a little cameo in the movie.
Yeah, right. It's funny how we do all this, but that's the truth. Where at the end of the day, it's like
because people out there
attracted to it.
Yeah, because people out there listen to you hear about these spiritual people, and it's like you're looking at it from where they are, but where were they? Mm-hmm. Like even Eckhart Tolle tells a story when he was 6 years old.
He walked through the depths of hell.
Yeah, he thought about killing himself. It's like 6 years old. I'm like, I can tell you right now, I've never thought about that. It wasn't until I started dating. I was messing with you. But also I'm like, wow, so you hear the story. And then when he became enlightened, he still lived like on a bench, blissed out for 2 years. And he's like, one day he's like, I got to do something, but it's like, so this is why he's so relatable, because his story, when you listen to Ramana Maharishi, his story was like, he was 16 years old, I believe the age, came home from school and he thought he was dying. Mm-hmm. And then he went into what they call samadhi, and it wasn't like anything he did previous to get into it. But then when he came out of it, he was completely enlightened. From what I understood, he didn't talk for 2 years. People had to take care of him because he was so blissed out. He didn't even need to feed his body, so people took care of him. Then he was like, okay, I'm going to be here for a little bit. Let me do something. That is something you can't teach people. Mm-hmm. But most people on the planet don't go into those things. I remember there was a guy we covered, I forgot his name, but he talked about going into samadhi where he was in like a slight coma for 4 days. And thank God he was in India. If he was here in the United States, they would have buried him.
Was that the one who came off the ship, into New York?
No.
Panama.
No, not Yogananda.
Oh, yeah, Yogananda.
Although he had a similar experience.
Okay,
I'm talking about the
one.
young guy that's still alive. What's his name? What the hell was his name? Man, I should know this, but
yeah.
Anyway, he's like, so there was nothing I did. I wasn't doing a meditation. I wasn't praying. It just happened.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can picture him.
Yeah, and he's very interesting. But so the goal isn't to come into samadhi. The goal is like, hey, you got a piano in front of you. Like, yeah, Mozart coming out knowing how to play the piano, and he got better over time. But I'm like, start with the basics. Start with the breath work. Start with the meditation. Then amplify it. And then, okay, I feel good when I'm meditating, but I don't feel good when I go to work. Why? Okay, can you get back to that state? Can you take that with you? Okay, work this year was a lot better than it was last year. It's still not great. Okay, you're moving in the right direction. Keep going. Now, like when you're playing scales, now after you learn your scales, now it's about timing. Can I count and play the scales? Can I count 1, 2, 3, 4 and do shifts off or whatever? Okay, now I'm adding something else in. No. Every time I add a damn nuance in, it gets back to square one. But that is the game. As I can tell you right now, I never, I would wake up to ideas, and then I would, like, the idea of wanting to play the piano, then I had to go take lessons. I didn't wake up to the idea of playing piano, and I was able to play Mozart right away. But I'm not saying that's impossible. I heard a story, I don't know if it's true or not, where this guy dove into a pool and hit his head. And I don't know if he went into a coma or not, but he came out and was able to play classical piano.
I heard about that. Yeah. Well, didn't he start speaking other languages too?
And what's tough about telling that story, you probably get some moron whacking his head against it trying to be Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, right.
And that moron was me, by the way.
That was actually the part of the story why you jumped off the bridge.
Yeah, what part of my head do I have to hit to stop playing like Eddie?
Yeah, right.
And people are like, well, you're better off just starting with the scales and lower chords and see what happens. You may never get this, son. I'm like, all right, yeah.
It's funny how our mind twists these things into, we want this and that, and all
the
above.
But know this too. Even the guy that came out and hit his head and played the piano, it was a quick shift in consciousness, quick shift in his reality, but that didn't sustain anything. Mm-hmm. It didn't sustain him. Like, oh my God! So like, hey, I want to do something else. Maybe I should dive off the diving board again. I'm like, I don't think it's going to work that way again.
It's not going. No. Go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, he still had to deal with life, and it's all, stuff like that. And
like we all do.
Yeah.
And that's the point of this episode here,
Yeah,
which is showing people,
don't
have these.
Don't give up on the idea.
Habits.
Don't give up on the idea that you can quantumly leap into something, but don't hold on to that either. So it's almost like this. I want to experience great wealth in the physical world. Okay, play the lottery, but still keep working towards saving your money. Don't and I'm just using this as a gross interpretation of what I'm talking about, because at higher levels, none of this really matters. But yet, in the physical world, money helps us move around, but it doesn't create happiness. It creates comfort, right? So we have to be too careful about that as well.
Money's a tool.
Yeah, money's a tool. It's a great tool. But so if you're an entrepreneur and you want to make money, whatever, keep doing that. But it doesn't mean don't dream about winning the lottery. Mm-hmm. Like, you can do both. And that's the cool thing is don't go this or that. It's this and that. Yeah. And that's what we're here to tell you. It's not about just the inner world. What's the inner world, the outer world? It's both. They both have to be, semi-hinked together. Like, if not, if I just sit in my inner world and have these experiences, I have what we call stillborn products. There's nothing comes from it. So when I have an idea, I want to express it either through this podcast, through my writing, through my work with my business. I want to express it. But I come from here and then express it out. Yeah. I don't try to, let me paint to feel good. I'm like, no.
Yeah, you got to start from the state.
Let me get into a state where painting is easy. And then me and Mike were doing, one of the practice we started doing with breathing is, there's a name for it, and I watched it. I don't know. I'm not real familiar with all the Vendetic, yogi type stuff, but it's kind of where you use just your nostrils. I know there's a name for it. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking at it, okay, you give me all the information around it and tell me all the stuff. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to see how it works. Yep. Like when I was learning certain scales, I didn't care what they were called. I just cared about the structure of them so I could play music, right? Yeah. If I was playing with musicians and they say go into pentatonic scale, okay, okay, thank God I had a label, I can understand it. But then if I was really good, I didn't need to know what it was called. I know what it sounds like. Yeah. All right. So the name isn't as necessary. But when I start doing it, typically if I'm holding my right nostril and I'm breathing in my left, it's activating my right side of my brain. And inversely, it's going to breathe in the right, it's going to activate my left brain. So if I want to get a little more creative, I want to emphasize more breathing in through my left nostril. Then what's interesting is not till I started doing breath work a while ago, when I'm breathing in naturally, like, okay, right, I'm breathing right now, I notice I don't know about you right now, my right side is pulling more in, so I'm probably a little more left leaning right now, but I'm still having air coming into my left nostril. Mm-hmm. Right? So if I want to get more creative, I would start clogging up this. And all of a sudden, I start noticing something. To what degree? I don't know. I have no expectation of that either.
You're bringing that energy to that area of the brain. You're bringing attention to it.
Yeah, and I don't become a lunatic and just like, so how would you like me to do your hair today? Hold on to it.
Yeah, right. You don't need it to function.
No, you don't. But what happens is when you start doing this, you become aware of like, okay, when I breathe in right now, my left nostril or my right nostril in this case is taking more oxygen. It means this one's clogged up, whether it's whatever it is. So that tends to mean that my left side of the brain is more active. There's nothing wrong with that.
So it's the opposite. So if your left side of your nostrils are wide open, that means you're using the right side of your brain, right? And then vice versa. And then if your right side is clogged up, let's say, or you're having trouble breathing to that right side, okay, I'm being way too analytical right now. I'm using only the left side of my brain. And we want to hemisync these hemispheres.
Because you don't want to be too analytical about the breathing part either. Like you want to get to a point where you're not thinking about the instrument, you're just playing it. Mm-hmm. You're playing beautiful music. But in the beginning, it seemed a little difficult. So I tell people, practice these little weird things and notice the nuances in your behavior and your changing. I'm like, wow, there's something to this. And there's no end to it. Yeah. Don't get too caught up in the logistics of it too, because then that's going to flood your left brain and you're going to be off balance just from that. People get too much into studying and they become like a mad scientist, if you will. I'm like, it's experiential, people. I'm like, the only truth I know is experience. Someone could tell me, hey, this works. Okay, let me try it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, it didn't. And depending on how to explain it, I'm like, well, it didn't work quite. I'm like, well, you did it wrong. And maybe I did. Maybe I did. I don't know. But once I start to do experience of things, I notice right away I get effect. And then I also get these odd residual effects. And that's what we're going to talk about that as well, is synchronicity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things that I didn't even assume I might have been thinking, and all of a sudden they start to show up. And anyone out there listening, notice how much is synchronistic life. And if you listen to podcasts like this and others, it's synchronicity. If you listen first time, synchronicity is when things happen that you've been thinking about it, but weren't really searching for it. It's like a glimpse. And all of a sudden it appears. You're like, whoa. Mm-hmm. Well, this is starting to happen more and more for me, and not just for me, for people around me that aren't even like I listen to a lot of literature and or read a lot of literature on this stuff and watch a lot of podcasts. I spend most of my time on my social media, like mainly YouTube. I don't really get on Instagram. Mm-hmm. The short videos. Mm-hmm. It's like going to dinner and someone just hey, have a bite of this.
Yeah, eat an appetizer.
Can I have the whole entree? I don't want just a bite of it. And a lot of times too, because I've even seen with the videos that we make, and we try to do them as best we can. Sometimes they're out of context; they make no sense. Mm-hmm. They're intriguing, but when I watch a whole 2-hour, 3-hour episode of somebody talking about something, the whole context is in it, and it never ends either because it's never done. So I spend a lot of my time on YouTube watching these type of things, and I've noticed then new people, new ideas in the same realm will show up that I haven't heard without me searching. Mm-hmm. I wasn't looking for somebody new. It just happened. Like Mike introduced me to somebody earlier today. And I'm like, wow. And I haven't listened to him, but I'm going to go listen to him because there was a point where I'm listening. Like I'll listen to someone for a while and then go on to somebody else. Yeah. In the beginning, I used to be like, what's wrong with me? I'm like, nothing's wrong. I'm like, when I go to, my idea comes to driving the car, say I listen to music, let me listen to something. All of a sudden I put my, phone connected to the car, and the algorithm will show the people I listen to most. But every once in a while, where did that person come from? Mm-hmm. And in the past, I'd be like, skip. Now it's like, let me hear this.
Exactly.
And I'm like, all right, and it's like, oh my God, it's pretty interesting. Or sometimes it's like, oh, this is interesting in the fact that I'm not going to continue listening. It's just gave me an idea to mitigate or help people mitigate a different understanding of that.
Well, and it's your inherent now knowing how this experience works.
Yeah.
Everything, guys. Everything
is beneficial.
And it's your manifestation. Your greatest teacher is you walking out that front door and interacting with life and seeing how the world comes at you in different ways and how people you interact with them. Then you're going to see it's like peering into yourself, like, hey, how am I feeling today? Because at that moment that you have that energy shift, the moment you go within and you start from the end state, you're going to experience a whole different world outside of you. So every moment of every day is very synchronistic because it's kind of looping back to where you're at. You know?
And an exercise I tell a lot of people to do is if you're very controlling people, which most of us are to different levels, take 5 minutes out of your day where you relinquish control, all right? And so do it in a way where it's not going to hurt you, all right? Then up that to 10 minutes and keep going. And all of a sudden, you're going to have 5 minutes of your day where you're controlling. And 95, and, would that be 23?
Starts to feel good.
Yeah, it'd be 23 hours and,
what is that, 55 minutes?
55 minutes where you're not controlling. Obviously, when you're sleeping, you're not in control, so that's good. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, you start it might be the slow stairway to heaven, which is a brilliant travel. I don't want to miss anything. Some people might quantum leap to a higher place on the ladder or the stairway, whatever. It doesn't matter.
And we all have that
ability.
I'm
not looking why is that person hopping? I enjoy every step I hit. So when you do that, just take 5 minutes where you're not in control and then start slowly swapping that out. It's kind of like this old image in my head I had of somebody talking about this stuff. It's a very gross expression, but it works. Where they took say tomato juice, right? And it's like, okay, tomato juice is in here. How do I clear this out? you can dump it, but then it's empty. We can't be empty. But if you run it underwater, and it was in a clear cylinder, like a clear glass, over time, the red went to pink, and eventually it just went clear.
Really?
What was the water was pushing the tomato juice out. So what the suggestion I always suggest people, do it slowly. You might make quantum leaps. That's great, but don't wait don't sit on your mom's couch playing the lottery, waiting to buy a house with the lottery money to get your mom's hair. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at this, I'm talking about spiritually, I'm talking about.
Yeah, begin to take action.
So
inspired action.
Yeah, so when you're bothered by the stock market going down, you lost half your money, why are you bothered by that? That's the moment where you want to go in. If it's too much, okay, just spend 5 minutes there, get up and distract yourself, and next time spend 10 minutes, and all of a sudden it's like, wow. Then what happens is people think, oh, then I'm going to be broke and homeless. I'm like, no, you will not, because we're playing in this field. Mm-hmm. What happens is when you get discouraged, you do this. And you go down, and you diminish. What a sad life. What
a sad life.
Yeah. The life of a salesman. Right? So we don't want to be Loman in this situation. We want to be continuing up this stairway to heaven. Some days the loop's going to, like that little shift will go higher, but some days it's just like this. But as long as the trajectory is doing this on the peak part.
Going up.
Now, because the peak part has its trajectory, right? Sometimes it's this way, sometimes it's a little flatter. Mm-hmm. Then it's the down, the crest of the trough of the wave that I admire now, because that elbowed me up. So now going down
without that you couldn't have gotten.
And just like a great person that works the stock market knows, when it goes down they do something different, when it goes up they do something different. They don't care. Mm-hmm. They don't want to miss out. They have to anticipate when is this thing going to bottom out. Mm-hmm. So then they have to stay alert to see that. And they don't always nail it, but it doesn't matter. But they don't freak out. They're just alert. They're paying attention. And so when it goes down, they hold and they stop buying. When it goes up, they sell. Mm-hmm. Right? So I'm not really, it's not my, expertise by any means. Have other people do that for me. And I'm like, how does that work? Just don't worry about it.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
But that's again.
But the physics behind it permeates throughout everything that we do. Exactly. And even in the spiritual world, it works. So focus on walking up to heaven, so to speak, one step at a time. And periodically, you're going to go 20 steps with one stride. Mm-hmm. You're going to start shrinking, just like Forrest Gump. The movie was spanned over 40 decades, but I think the movie only took like 2.5 hours to show. Mm-hmm. Those are quantum leaps. And you know the full story about Forrest Gump. You didn't need to know every little single detail.
Nope.
Get out of that place. That's not for us.
We don't need the details.
No,
the details are...
We need the overarching theme
That's exactly
of life.
it.
And
you choose that state, So focus on the awareness.
Yeah.
When you know you have awareness to something, now you're ahead of the game.
And because when you walk up that stairs, you step into the state. Yeah. Now it's like, because people are like, how do I choose something that's not in front of me? Like, how do I, how when I'm in a Chinese restaurant do I choose a slice of pizza? I'm like, well, you can't. You got to get it into a state of a restaurant that serves pizza. Mm-hmm. But understanding each step will present a different opportunity. I'm like, wow, holy cow.
Getting that much closer.
And then when you look back down the staircase, you're like, I thought I was doing this one step at a time. Somewhere along the line, it took quantum leaps. Mm-hmm. And you'll recognize those, And I think what happens if you do a quantum leap and then the next, say, year, just for instance, just kind of give an analogy, you then was one step at a time. You think something happened. I'm like, nothing happened. That year was meant to hit every step along the way. Where the year before was a quantum leap. Stop anticipating I need quantum leaps from now on in order to be happy. Because people that got into the spiritual world, I deal with this all the time. And I used to be this person, but I got over it. They'll talk to me like, I understand all this stuff. And all of a sudden, when I first started doing it, things were happening. Things were like, now all of a sudden, I'm like, what's happened? What isn't happened? Like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're still here. You're still alive. You still have an experience. What did you want? You want to win the lottery every day after winning the lottery? Like, come on. It's not. I'm like, you're missing out on the whole aspect of life. in the spiritual journey. And it's all a spiritual journey.
It is.
Whether you know it or not, it is. The better we understand, the more we trust it and put faith in it, the easier it is. There is no doubt about that.
When you come from this place of total knowing, and you are living in the end as if you've experienced that right now, and there's no focus on any, there's no wavering about why haven't I experienced this yet, or why haven't I experienced that yet, and you're living in that end state, watch the magic happen. And the only way to get into this state is by having awareness, and is because you have to have awareness to say, oh, that's an old mind pattern.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an I've taken that path before. I don't like that path. That's and then you're back on track.
Yep.
You're back on track. Because what this whole experience is us experiencing our self-talk.
Yeah. And stop believing that this has to happen.
Yeah.
It's the energy field that you want. Because what we are is I tell, and it's a gross interpretation. I've said this before. I bring it up that the story's already written. What does that mean? Well, that's why it's a gross interpretation. It's just an interpretation. It's not really what's happening. But if I keep following the road and trust that it's all going to culminate into something, but along the way there's little fractals of some things, right? Like every minute of every day has a cycle. It's called a 30-second cycle, and every day has a 24-hour cycle, and then there's a monthly cycle, then there's a yearly cycle, and keep going. There's a fractals of it. Everything has that. So if I'm not enjoying the moment in each cycle, I'm missing out. But in my imagination, if I'm like, oh my God, if I was, living in a mansion where I'd have to go work and I had all the money in the world and I could do whatever I wanted, that's going to relinquish you from the stress of having to go to work, a job that you don't want to. Hold on to that. Hold on to the feeling. So you assume the feeling, not the thing that has to happen. All right? And the reason I say that is if you're an actor playing a role, and depending on, it doesn't matter if you're, a homeless person living on the street or a person in a mansion, you have the capacity to win the Oscar, if you will. So embrace that. And know that the story's already written. You chose this on some side. Again, this is a gross interpretation. It's deeper than that, but because we are so fascinated with stories and understanding how actors perform, they're not okay, the only actor that can win the Oscar is the richest person in the film, or the prettiest person in the film, or the most dominate person film. No, that's not how it works. They're usually the evil one, But even they can be the dominant. It doesn't matter. It depends on who's telling the story, how it aligns, But it's the feeling we want to hold on to. When you watch that and you keep walking with that feeling within you, oh my God, the story's going to be greater than you ever anticipated. But if someone once told you their story and they're 90 years old and you're 5, and they tell you the whole story, I'm like, wow, that's fascinating. And what's fascinating is because you haven't lived it. Now all of a sudden they die and you try to pick up and try to relive the story and you live a miserable life. Why? It wasn't your story.
Exactly.
Everyone's got a story. What's fascinating is they were 99 years old or whatever, still telling the story. And it's like, my God, they made it this way. And it's like, yeah, you'll make it here too, but you're going to have a completely different story to tell to the other 5-year-old that you're going to be telling it to.
Exactly.
Stop trying to chase somebody else's story. That story's already done.
And we live in a society that actually, promotes that and welcomes that. Hey, here's the 10 steps to get, $1 million. Here's the 10 steps to lose 100 pounds. We have all these, I've done it, so this is how I did it, so you got to go do it. It's not the way this whole thing works. It's just not. No. We don't talk about that.
Because if it really
there's nothing to sell you on that because we don't know.
If logic was to apply in that setting, because it's not, there's part of that logic that does work, but not all of it works. The reason being is, if I really want to be very wealthy, the only person I would ever want to teach me is the wealthiest person in the world. It's mostly people I don't, never heard of.
Yeah.
And even, Tony Robbins talks about this, but he changed and shifted completely to fulfillment. Because he was doing that. It's well, why isn't Tony Robbins the richest person in the world? If this is what he does singly, he teaches people how to be wealthy. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, if he was here, and he doesn't need to be here for me to say this, wealth has to do with the amount of money you have. Wealth has to do with what you're involved in, and if you're trying to change the world in some way or whatever, or help the world in some way,
The lives you're impacting.
or service, I should say, service the world in some way, you're going to need a certain amount of money to do that, right? So he does it in a big way. But look at Elon Musk. Well, Elon Musk doesn't go out and talk about this stuff, but he himself is worth anywhere from like one day it's like 300 billion to whatever. Yeah. It fluctuates. So why isn't he teaching us? You're missing the point. That's not the point even Tony Robbins is trying to teach. But people get caught up in the logistics of it. So something's not happening here. Why? I'm not a millionaire yet. I'm like, oh my God. Like, like that's not the point.
That's exactly.
But if you let go of that, you might find yourself being a millionaire one day, and it's not going to be a big deal. Looking at your bank account and seeing $1 million is not that big of a deal.
In fact, it's normal because you're now used to that.
Yeah, but then it's like, okay, I have $1 million. What am I going to do with it? Okay, am I going to just, I heard, someone talking to Eminem. Now, in the beginning, when they talked about him, like he was talking about, like his manager, he'd go out and see like a Rolex watch and he wanted to buy it, and he called his manager up to see if he can afford it, and the manager's like, dude, you're fucking Eminem. But he was younger and he came from poverty, right? But now it's like he's completely over that. He can buy it whatever he wants, and he
still has those habits and patterns.
No. It's completely different.
I thought you were saying
no, he doesn't have it. Now he doesn't care, but the guy asked, what watch is that? He goes, it's a shock watch. It cost me $100. Oh, he doesn't need to go spend to buy the $500,000 watch. He doesn't need that, but it's no longer out of poverty. It's a completely different place. He's not in poverty anymore. Mindset. But he doesn't need to validate. He's like, he had a shock watch. My son bought himself one in like junior high school. So he's,
totally.
So that was a brilliant, like the understanding. Like, it's kind of cool when someone, like, as wealthy as someone like Eminem is, and talk about that, because that's not why he's here. He's here to write music that's going to change the world and how they look at the world and start to, something that no one ever expected, especially.
That's his impact.
Yeah, his impact. So he's wearing a shock watch. And then he says, yeah, it costs $100. But it wasn't out of poverty mentality. No. In the beginning, he's like, am I allowed to buy a watch? Yeah, he was used to that poverty mentality. But now he's completely out of it. But he was always wealthy because he was able to create lyrics and, put things together. We're all here. We're all here to create something. And even if you're creating something and watching a plant grow in your backyard, and or a garden where you have tomatoes, and then you create a salad for your family, God damn, that's just
how much wealth
that
right
is
there.
Just as important as a song Eminem written. Yeah. You might only have 5 people eat the salad.
But that is such a great point. Like if we looked at and valued wealth for the number of things that it really encompasses, we would all realize that we all have these true aspects of wealth within us.
And guess what? The money will come to you based on accordance to what you're about to do and what to step onto, right? The reason Elon Musk needs $300 billion, the guy's trying to get to Mars, for the love of God.
Yep.
It's going to cost a lot of money. So you look at all these people that have a lot of money. Now, what they do with it, I'm not here to discuss that, but it's because what they did to move it that way, they're going to need it somehow.
Yeah.
And you don't see too many millionaires and billionaires now trying to isolate themselves. It looks like they're, again, we have to be careful. Like, the road to hell was paved with good intentions, but I'm not here to judge that. I don't play in that game anyway.
Exactly.
It's all just an experience to me. But yeah, they don't seem to be about the money. They seem to be about the process. Like, how can I make a rocket land on a platform? Like, no, like they used to land in the ocean. They go swim and get it. How can I get goods and services to people quicker? Jeff Bezos, right? It's more about the process that trying to make it easier. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but
But that's what we learn along this journey, is that it is the journey.
Yeah, it's not like I want to make a lot of money.
Snake going up the arm, so we can tell the story after.
Yeah, I don't want to make a lot of money to isolate myself. I want to make a lot of money. It's not that I want to make a lot of money. I want to immerse myself more and into the field of operating with more people on this level and being uplifted myself or uplifting people. To me, it's the same. And what I've noticed is, when I'm doing that, the money shows up, and then I have to spend it. If I don't, the opportunity disappears. I've used to, I remember like oh yeah, if I had this much money, I'd buy this thing, but I don't have the money. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, a check would come right around the same money. This is synchronicity, by the way. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, my poverty mentality didn't make me buy that item. And all of a sudden, that money disappeared anyway. Mm-hmm. Like at least if I bought that thing, it would have been like, wow. So then I've learned, I'm like, okay, money will show up because you put forth. I really meant it. Like if I had that, I would go buy that. And I felt it. And all of a sudden, money like 3 months later would show up and I didn't buy the item. Mm-hmm. I felt, well, what happens if something goes wrong?
Yeah,
let me hold on to it. So I realized at that point I was in poverty mentality, but that poverty mentality taught me how to get out of the poverty mentality. So exactly. I look back at the poverty mentality and I kind of laugh at it.
And thank it.
Yeah,
and love
exactly. It. Yeah, because I learned physics through it.
Yes.
I learned the ideas of the physical world. So I don't like, am I still there? I'm like, well, maybe to some degree, but it doesn't hold me down. Mm-hmm. So when things come my way and a thought comes to go do something and then means come, I actually spend it and use it right then. Why? Because I know what keeps coming.
Yeah. I
have enough experience. I've walked enough steps to know that. So I'm not, if anyone, wherever you are in your journey, if you're not feeling it, just keep walking and you'll see what I'm saying. And if you don't see it, you're not doing anything wrong. At all. If you're in the basement of a building, so what? Who cares? Just, graze your hands along the walls and find that metal door with the button, push on it, and it opens up, get in it. Hit any number in the thing, call the elevator. See what happens. You could always go back down to the basement.
The same old thoughts.
Yeah. All right, well, anyone out there, we get a lot more emails lately, which is kind of nice.
I was going to say it's been great reading everybody's responses lately.
Yeah, so,
emails.
Yeah, and because we're all on this journey together. Earth is one big spaceship. So if you're looking for other spaceships, we are on one.
Yeah,
we're just running into other little spaceships coming into our planet. Like these drones. I don't know what they are. I don't really.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But it's part and parcel of it. So how you look at it is how it's going to experience in your behalf. So yeah, if you have any, we love when people write in comments and stuff like that. We're going to start featuring some people too that
absolutely
on here. We have a couple of people.
We'll reach out to,
and we just want to hear how this journey is going for you. Every time you lift up your energy, it lifts somebody else up, lifts tenfold. So I do this for not just me. I do it for everybody else as well.
That's it.
All right, I kind of hold that to my ground, and why not? What else am I doing? It's easy. So
I love it.
All right.
2025 is going to be your year, guys. It always has been. It always will. Claim it now. And we're excited because there's going to be a lot of great moments to share throughout this year. And so we'll be coming to you each week on Monday. Yeah. And we look forward to the next one. Yeah. So, perspective shift 2020@gmail.com is how you can reach us. That's the easiest way. Yep. You can DM us, do other stuff. I'm not like a big Instagram follower or whatever. I appreciate that tool is out there, but I'm not really on there. But we do have Kayla. Email comes directly to us, though.
Our lovely Kayla, she deals with that stuff. But the email, I'm always looking at those. And we really appreciate it, because you guys are keeping us here talking.
We love it.
All right.
Take care, guys.
All right. Much love and peace out.
See you next week.